So we're going to start our panel discussion. Hopefully you've already come up with some questions. Anybody got a question they would like to start off with? Yes, take it.
No, I didn't push you either.
Well, actually, first let me allow the two new panelists to introduce themselves. Dan, why don't you start?
Hello. My name is Dan Hazen from MKS Instruments. For those of you that may not know MKS, we're about a $800 million publicly traded company. We provide measurement, flow, power, technology, and vacuum-based applications. We provide automation solutions and analytics. Really what Lee talked about was really a collaborative solution from our automation and our control solutions division with our analytics group within MKS to provide this one solution that is the monitoring, the control, and then the analytics. Yeah.
Andy?
My name is Andy Robinson. I'm an information solutions consultant with Avid Solutions. We're a vendor-neutral integrator in North Carolina, Georgia, and at least that's where our locations are, in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We've been providing traditional automation solutions for a number of years, but also now much more advanced solutions along the lines of what Erlene is talking about with, helping customers realize the value of taking all that data they've had on the floor for all those years and leveraging them in new and creative ways.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So I've seen everybody talk about putting in these systems and, combining the IT and OT so that you can adjust and make changes. But Lee, you were the first one that actually had mention of Six Sigma in there. Are you actually able to use processes like that, or does it move too quickly?
From our perspective, a lot of the applications that pretty much every application that we've looked at within Baxter, this system has been able to provide value in. So your process may not be perfect when you start because you may have some sensors, some wiring issues, those kinds of things. But as you work through that, you'll start to understand your process capability, and it will force you to make one of two decisions. You'll either say, this process is something I want, at least in our industry, this process is something I'm okay with to make a medical device, that's going to actually be used on a patient, or it will force you to finally go to have the discussion relative to investment to get that process up to where it needs to be so that you can have this kind of tool available.
Anybody else got a comment on that?
I think one of the interesting things we have seen, and Erlene alluded to in one of her slides, was the idea of once you've done this, you end up thinking about a lot of other things. One of the things that we've seen with a lot of customers, if they will take on something like Six Sigma or Lean or whatever the new technique is of the day, the end result usually ends up being a lot more discipline and a lot more understanding, irregardless of where they actually end up in the process. Maybe the Six Sigma, they didn't accomplish what they wanted, but all of a sudden they have vast more understanding and more discipline in their existing processes, and that ends up sometimes being more valuable than the stated end goal, at the end of the day.
Any other questions right now? Okay, let me ask one then. We got this question from the last panel discussion. What is the biggest challenge that you see with the IT-OT convergence in the plant? Let me have Erlene go first because she had two different sites with different results. So.
Right, and I think it really starts with education and collaborating, communicating between the two groups. Every week I meet with the IT director of architecture. I also meet with two of the primary team players in IT, and we make sure that we all understand what's going on with the different projects and what's going to be needed. Try to give them as much of a heads up as possible. And an example of that is I currently have a construction project for a large volume blow fill seal. Well, that project is completely new, both to the OT group and to the IT group, because we've been solid oral until now. So there's a lot of communication, and I found that if they know what's coming, they're much more likely to be on board with any changes they need to make.
Okay. Andy, you want to add anything to that?
I think, and it's kind of a natural progression of my last answer. I think the biggest challenge we found is that when you start to try to bring these two systems and environments together that have traditionally never needed to cooperate with each other or depend on each other, what you end up finding is most organizations don't have the discipline already in place. They think they are disciplined. They think their data models are consistent and constant. They think the way they do things in their business processes are consistent. But when you start to design an environment to say, no, my automation system needs to depend on that being the same way every single time, they realize, oh, wait a second, that's right. Once a week, someone goes in and makes manual adjustments to the work orders or to the bombs or things like that. And so what it does is it exposes a lack of discipline and maturity, and then the difference between the successful projects and the unsuccessful ones. The successful companies take that and they say, okay, that's a challenge, we understand that, we're going to use this as an opportunity to get better. And the unsuccessful ones say, well, just figure out how to make it work, and you're pretty sure you're going to fail at that point.
Mm-hmm. Lee, do you have any comments?
From our perspective, we pretty much force the two to work together relative to any project that we have.
You force them?
We force it. There's no other way to say it. It's forced.
Dan?
Yeah, I think, in general, we as a company tend to sort of sit and reside mostly on the OT world, but, I think it's really a matter of understanding the pain points, understanding the problems. It's, in our world, it's getting the right information to the right people so that they can get value out of it and make the decisions that they need to make to be successful. So, I think, you alluded to it earlier. I think it's that early collaboration at the beginning, understand what's important to them, so that you are not just, so for us, we're not just meeting the needs on the OT side, but we're also providing something to the IT world that they can use to make their processes and their life easier as well.
Great, thanks. Question?
Yeah, so Arlene, on your talk, one of the issues or concerns that you arised was the integration of LDAP. So you had that drawn with inside of the IT boundary. I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you set up roles and users in that intersection between the IT and the OT function.
Sure. It's good to see you, by the way, Jimmy. We have set up within the environment a completely separate OU, first of all, because we don't want anyone to make changes to our servers. We need to do that ourselves, not the IT group. And as far as LDAP goes, because we've now moved our manufacturing VLAN into the primary organization with restrictions and with ACLs, we're able to take and move our operators into LDAP and allow that to be used. Now, as far as security, we do still go ahead and set up within that user groups, OT user groups, that say, yes, you can log in and use this equipment or this system. And they, being IT, allow my group to manage those groups so that we do keep it under control. A lot is it's really matured over the past, let's say, 5 years from where we started.
Anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think this concept of using the security components provided by mature IT organizations is something I'll say not relatively new, but it certainly takes advantage of a great product or a great idea that's been around for a number of years. One of the things we've done, I'll say in a previous project, was we actually leveraged training records in SAP in combination with group membership so that, as operators came in and out of compliance and training, their membership was automatically maintained in these groups. So now you don't have to look, and in a pharma environment, it's very critical. If you find that an operator has not properly trained and operated a piece of equipment, you may be able to explain that away. You may be able to deal with that, but you're talking about countless hours in paperwork to deal with a situation that, can be dealt with automatic in a software way, but it's just because people haven't had the creative thought to say, hey, we can put these two together.
Anybody else? No? Another question? No? Everybody wants to leave. Oh, behind you, Craig.
Yeah, one question. You both mentioned energy, basically energy consumption. I would be interested how you deal with data as well as information regarding energy consumption, because it's also from an organizational side very critical. It basically brings in the next stakeholders.
Who's first?
Trying to think of what I need to say.
Yeah.
Well, I'll maybe comment.
Go.
I think one of the things that we've looked at a little bit is, so Lee talked a little bit about this, the multivariate modeling and the multivariate analysis, and one of the things that we've looked at is based on or building a relationship, a model between energy consumption and how you run your process, let's say. And so we've looked at some things where we can build a correlation to the energy consumption and then potentially optimize the way that you're going to run your process to minimize your energy use. So, I mean, that's a kind of a very specific example, but that's one thing that we have looked at.
And you can piggyback on that, not just with electricity, but let's talk about Wi-Fi just for a moment. With our new suite, we know that we make X amount of Wi-Fi get over a period of time.
You want to explain what Wi-Fi is?
It is water for injection. So, and it's critical to this particular process. Well, the process itself needs a quantity, and we're continuously making that, but we need to make sure that how much we have, and is it going to be enough to move to run that process again, or do we have to have some mandated hold time because you don't want to start that if you don't have enough Wi-Fi for use. Mm-hmm. It's similar to the power.
Okay. Another question? Yeah, let me ask this then. Do you find that a lot of this, the push for convergence coming from the top, from your management, or is it actually coming from the frontline workers or engineers and things?
Well, for us, we're driving everything we can from the shop floor to the top floor. In the ERP, we have the data they need. We have data they need they don't even know they need. As far as even on the convergence side, we're really driving that because, I don't care if people can print or get their email, but I do care about, can we run this equipment and can we get the data where it needs to go? So one of the things that we've done is created a GXP systems committee so that we are prioritizing what happens when it happens and then pushing that up and over to the IT group and moving forward with those.
Anyone else want to comment?
It's the same with us. I mean, we try to typically drive at the shop floor level first, and then once you get the value there, then it usually comes over from the other side once you've proven that out.
Great.
Yeah, I guess I'll add a comment maybe on as far as MKS is concerned. So I think there's a lot of focus within our company on operational excellence and so I think we in business units realize in order for us to meet our management objectives that we have to continuously improve. And every day it's small improvements, and with that comes this, we have to work better together. We need to do things. We need to be smarter about our business processes.
So I will say most of our customers will tend to be along these typical lines of it tends to be from the shop floor up. But what we do see on occasion, though, is we kind of see it coming from both ends. But what's interesting is the way we see it is the director levels and then also the shop floor people, they'll present a problem not in terms of technology, but in terms of a functional requirement. I want to make sure my operators don't log into equipment when they're not qualified. They have no idea how to get that done. And so that's where I think the providers, like MKS and what we're trying to do and others, is the ability to span those technical languages and concepts, because, and I think we're going to see more and more director levels are going to be demanding more and more because they're going to hear from their buddies at their golf game, or they're going to see on the Microsoft or the SAP or the IBM infomercials to say, hey, we're doing things in manufacturing, and they're going to come to us and say, or they're going to come to their shop floor people and say, well, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't know. But so it's the ability to translate those languages and those functions that they want done. I think that's going to be really key, and the people who can do that well will be successful, and the people who can't will keep trying.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? Nobody? Okay. So with that, let's conclude our session. Please give a round of applause to our panelists and speakers. Thank you very much.